Alright guys, hey there, it's Burt from SoftTubes, and I'm finally doing my MCU breakdown because San Diego Comic-Con was last weekend, and Marvel Studios brought up a lot of stuff, and I haven't had time, so now I'm finally getting time to get through it. I'm going to break it into two videos. First we're going to do all the series for Disney+, and then we'll do the films. So straight up we're doing the series. As I said, they're all coming to Disney+. A little annoying for me because it's going to be a while before it comes out here in Australia. I'm hoping there's a legal way to be able to watch these shows, because at least one or two of them are definitely going to be out before it comes out here. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that happens. For America, it's not such a concern. But pretty much there wasn't a lot of surprising information. There was a few tidbits, but a lot of these are already pretty much known before this. So it wasn't like they announced any series. Like a bunch of things that were like, oh, we didn't know this was coming. There's one big thing they announced that we didn't, people wanted but wasn't really known. But we're just going to jump on in right now. So let's get to it. Okay, I'm pretty excited about this because honestly, I'm excited about all of these. But for Falcon and Winter Soldier, Falcon as Captain America was one of my I really like that series. And I think it'll be really cool to see Mackie's Falcon sort of taking on that role and learning how to be Captain America. Because this is someone who isn't entirely sure that it should be him, but Steve wanted it to be him. So he's going to have that little bit of a conflict. I think that'll be interesting to see. And I think Stan's Winter Soldier is going to bring some exciting fight, because I imagine that they'll be using that to be like, we got Winter Soldier, we have to do some nice fight stuff with him, action scenes and things like that. But I also expect him to play sort of a supportive role, kind of like, almost like a straight man to Falcon. He'll be trying to keep him on the right track, essentially, whenever Falcon's having, like, self-doubts about him being Captain America. I think Winter Soldier will be a bit like, no, Steve wanted you to do this. We can do this. Let's do this. The one big reveal, because this was, like, mentioned a while back, but the one big reveal here that I'm actually really excited about is that Brule's Baron Zemo will be returning for the series. I love Zemo in the comics. He's one of my favorite villains. He's just really like just a bad guy, but really like charismatic and interesting. And I really like the way Brule's like taken the way they did him in Civil War. That he's a manipulative kind of villain. He's not going to try and fight them head on, because he's not like, he can't fight the Hulk or Iron Man one-on-one. So he has to find other ways to do it and try and pit them against each other. I think was a really good way to do it. I think it makes him a really interesting villain. Outside of just I'm going to punch them until they stop or they beat me kind of thing. But what has me kind of really excited was that Brule tweeted out afterwards an image that appears to show Zemo in his signature purple mask, or at least a variation of it. I don't expect it to be exactly how it is in the comics. That's a very specific look, but I love comics, so I'm really excited to see more of that coming through. The one thing I want from Marvel Studios is to embrace that comic nature a bit more in terms of style and visuals. But what I'm really expecting from this show is that I think it's going to establish, or at least build the groundwork for establishing the new status quo for Earth post-Endgame in the MCU, because we haven't seen a lot of it. Spider-Man gave us hints of what things have been like with the snap and the blip and all that sort of stuff, but we haven't really seen how the world is working again yet. And I think this show is basically going to build that up for us, and will essentially lay the groundwork for the MCU to come in a lot of ways. So this one has an admittedly odd title that even Marvel Studios are admitting is really odd, because Feige said it isn't as odd as the show itself, which is an interesting thing to say. They seem to be banking on this being a very quirky, out there kind of show. Hopefully it can be that kind of thing, because that will be... I don't know a lot of people who are like, oh, I really want to see WandaVision, so they need to do something with the style of it to make it draw people in, I think. But they are being as tight-lipped about this as they are anything, so not a lot got revealed. I think it'll be interesting to see how they bring Vision back, how they sort of go about that. There's a few ways they can do it, so it'll be interesting. I did hear that this, rumor, so it's probably not based on anything, that it's they're taking inspiration from the Vision series of comics that they did a while back, where he built a nuclear family for himself. if that's the case, I'm totally down for it. That was a really good series. It's a really interesting way to do it. Like, I doubt he's going to build himself a wife because Wanda's in this, but maybe they will build a family for themselves using a mixture of technology and magic, or like her powers, which is magic. I'm going to talk about that later in the movie one, in the next part. But I think it has a lot of potential there if that's sort of the way they go, but I don't know if that's the weirdness they're sort of talking about. I do think it'll be interesting how they develop these two characters. They're not bland necessarily in my eyes, but they're very one note for the most part. They don't get a lot of development in the films because they don't get a lot of time to get development. They're never part of, like, even though they're technically main Avengers in a couple of films, they never really get a lot of screen time for that because the focus is on the original Avengers. So hopefully they find a way to make it more developed from that. And especially I want to see what they can do with Wanda's powers now, because they get a chance to focus on them. I think there's a lot they can do there, specifically. The one big surprising reveal was that Monica Rambeau, who's a child in the 90s in Captain Marvel, will be appearing as an adult, played by Teyonah Parris. And, I mean, I did not see this reveal coming at all. I didn't expect this. Like, they talked about, there'll be a few faces you've already seen before and new ones, which is cool. But then they were like, Monica Rambeau. And I was like, I didn't expect... Of all the people I could have thought to put in this, not Monica Rambeau. But I think it's very clever. It's a good way to reintroduce her in a few ways. I think the show might show how she gets her powers. And it might perhaps lead to her taking on the heroic persona of Photon. But I could also be completely wrong. She could not get powers in this, and the powers will be gained in a later thing. So it'll be interesting to see what her role is specifically, especially since they made a note of announcing her and the actress playing her. But I do think this is actually a really good reveal, because it bodes well for the MCU and building upon and expanding its universe, which is something I feel it really, really has to do at this point. Loki is a series that was long rumored and fairly long ago pretty much announced. I don't know if it was ever officially announced, but it was pretty much announced. The assumption was, following his death in Infinity War, this would either be a prequel series, and that was the one that was being thrown around a lot, was that Tom Hiddleston wouldn't star in it, but he would do voiceover, narrating Loki's story as he's like a young man going to Earth and messing up things and going to the other realms and stuff like that. The other way people were talking about it was like, they'll find a way to bring him back from the dead. Essentially. Like, he's not actually dead, or he pulled another trick or something. Endgame gave us something that's technically both, where they went to the past for the first Avengers films events, and Loki from that time managed to escape with the Tesseract Space Stone. So technically it's a prequel. It's also technically kind of him coming back from the dead. And it's also another universe entirely. It's an alternate reality. So they're giving us a lot there. They didn't really reveal much itself. They just brought out Hiddleston. They showed a pretty bad looking logo that might get better. I've heard some things trying to explain why it looks the way it does, but it's just not a great logo. So hopefully they can do something to make it more palatable. I don't know how, but maybe they can. But yeah, pretty much the only thing they revealed is this is Loki from that time period. So he's more villainous and does what he pleases. He hasn't been humbled by being around Thor as much and things like that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what form the show actually takes. We're not probably going to see any more concrete info for a long time at this point, but it'll be interesting the way they do it, because he's a hard character to kind of do, because he hasn't had a lot, and this is a further back Loki where he hasn't had a lot of development. I think you need to give him a nice strong supporting cast essentially to keep this show sort of running. Hopefully they can do that, but we'll see what they kind of do with it. Whether it has a traditional structure or does something a bit more different. So this one is a really interesting project. So not only is it the first animated project from Marvel Studios, but it's also a series that's set to explore different outcomes of events within the MCU. And it gives them a further chance to get a little weird with things. Hopefully they get weird with things. I mean, the biggest thing they revealed here is the fact that so many members of the cast members are coming back to voice their characters, which is pretty damn exciting. And then they're following the format of The Watcher, like from the comics of The Watcher telling the stories. And voiced by Jeffrey Wright is pretty damn good and has me pretty excited. I don't know exactly what to expect here, how far they're going to take things. Because I really hope they embrace the possibilities they have here, because they could give us something immensely memorable and serve as a way to introduce like new aspects, locations, and characters to the MCU without it necessarily being like this is them. Like they could introduce the idea of Avalon and Captain Britain and things like that without having to do those things strictly in film first. They could get people used to the idea of them here first, but it depends on the way they do it and how well received it is. So it's a bit of a tricky one. This will be interesting to see what they do with it. So this one I am seriously excited about the most. Hawkeye, and this is also more information. Hawkeye is a guy who has not really received his fair due in the MCU thus far, and he's not really been given a chance to show off what he can do or fully develop his character in any really interesting ways, aside from like, oh, he has a family now, and now he's lost his family. And that's pretty much all they got really done with him. Rumor has it we'll get to see more of what he got up to as Ronin, which is pretty cool, but I know a few people are really excited for that, but I'm kind of like, I'd rather see more of him as Hawkeye. Part of what I didn't like about Endgame was it was too much of him as Ronin. I wanted him to just be Hawkeye. We didn't get enough Hawkeye as Hawkeye to then take that away from him, I think. So if they could do Hawkeye well, give him a good friggin' basis, and work on that, I think they've got something really good there. But the part that has me most excited, thus my shirt, is the fact that the series is apparently about him training Kate Bishop to be the new Hawkeye, and in Renner's words, the better Hawkeye. Kate Bishop is one of my favorite characters in comics and fiction, and I've wanted to see her in the MCU for so long. And I mean, it's not even just about her, but her being there means that we're a step closer to the Young Avengers being a possible reality, and I'm so ready for that. We got Cassie Lang grown up. The WandaVision show might be able to introduce Tommy and Billy, like their children. I mean, we've got the Kree and the Skrulls, so we can get Hulkling. Friggin' Captain America stuff's already there, so Patriot can be a thing. Like, there is so much here that could happen, and I'm so excited for that. There's just possibility is more what I'm excited about than anything in a lot of ways, but hopefully they do this right. I'm really hopeful they get Kate Bishop's personality right. She has a very specific kind of personality about her that I think needs to be done. If you change it too much, you might as well have done like just been his daughter or something like that. But yeah, so overall, there weren't a lot of surprises from the series announcements. A lot of it already was basically confirmed before, but there was some nice new information. And I'm like super excited about the Hawkeye series being announced. Like, it was one of those things people kept saying, like, oh, they should do a Hawkeye series for a long time. And then it was like, it's probably never going to happen. And now it's happening, and it's so cool. Hopefully, all of these can live up to the potential and promise they have, since I think this is the best move for the MCU moving forward, because it gives it a chance to expand into new territory and genres that it might not necessarily be able to do with film. Because with film, it's so reliant on the economics of making a box office return that certain risks are less likely to happen. Where I think with a TV series, you have a bit more leeway because it's streaming especially, so people can kind of watch it whenever. So they're more likely to give something a shot. So hopefully this kind of works out for them and they really take advantage of what they got here. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I will be doing the video for film next. Hopefully it goes well. Because I had technical issues on this one already, so that was fun. This is technically the second recording of this. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think about all these series announcements, if there's anything you're excited for, if there are things you're not excited about. I mean, if you're kind of just done with the MCU. This was the kind of thing where I was kind of getting tired of the MCU, like after Endgame and after Spider-Man. It's kind of like, oh, okay, like I like these films, I love these films, but then it's kind of like, oh, I could be okay with a break. Like, I prefer the comics over the films anyway. So it's kind of like, yeah, they change things that it isn't always like I like Chris Evans' Captain America, but he's still not the Captain America I would like to see, so I'd rather read Captain America. But that's just kind of my thing, and I was kind of But then they did these announcements, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm invigorated again. So it'd be interesting if any of you are kind of like that, or if you're just kind of like, you know what, I'm done. But yeah, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button. If people did like this video, I might do more breakdowns type stuff again in the future. I've been playing around with doing more breakdown things, but figuring out a format was tricky because of copyright with using things, so always that format is a pain in the ass. But also, if you're new to the channel, for some reason this is the first thing you watched and you sat all the way through, thank you. But if you're really interested in all this and reactions to trailers and things like that and gameplay stuff, which there might not be any again this week, but hopefully I'll be able to work something out, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you want to keep up when things do get dropped, you can hit the bell as well. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
You're cute. I like it. My sister is gone. She picked up a boy. He's from Berkeley.
Berkeley.
You don't have weed, do you?
Do I look like the type of person that would have weed?
I'm sorry.
Boom. Yeah.
I have nothing against
hippies. I just want to beat the shit out of them.